That's interesting. And so, I mean, if you're happy, Pete, I've got one more question for Gilly to finish off the interview today. And that is a lot of this podcast is around careers and around grads, and it's around people starting their career. And so I want to ask you, what advice would you give to people that are starting their career again or starting their career in 2022?
So, James, when do you start your career?
In my head, the notion is that when you sort of get your first full-time job,
Oh,
uh,
so your tertiary education has nothing to do with your career.
yeah, I think it does. Yeah, it definitely does.
So, what's your question?
I think, how about when they're entering the workforce?
So, if you read 18 and Lost, Peter, are you familiar with 18 and Lost?
No.
James, you are, aren't you?
Yeah.
18 and Lost was a book written by a number of the constant students, which has as its sub theme what we know at 26 or 27 that we wish we had known at 18, because the knowledge, experience, values, skills that you take into the decision making for a university course is very much less than what you have at 26 when you have experienced one of the most important formation periods of your life. So the first lesson I think, James, to take out of that is keeping an open mind and an open heart is much more than just a glitzy saying of the moment. It's one of life's most vital survival skills. So point number one is you haven't wasted your education. You haven't wasted tertiary stuff, but keep your heart and your mind open as to how you're going against that thing. Always. Be prepared to question yourself. Always. Don't feel embarrassed or ashamed if you're tempted towards thinking, I've made a mistake. No, you haven't made a mistake. It's like Michael in first year law. You're just learning. And if you do that and you start understanding what turns on your passions, where your delight's coming from, what you're picking up, which really seems to be the authentic you as, well, doing it for yourself rather than your employer or your parents or other people or things that have an expectation of you. Your ability to break away from what you feel from the bombardment of social media. All the stuff you're reading, which is, I think, forcing you in a particular direction. Somewhere along the way, your gut will also kick in. I'm not quite sure about that because it's not my field of expertise, but I say to everyone who wants to listen these days, you have three very important ways of knowing, and that's your head, your heart, your gut. Got to keep them all in balance. You got to listen to all of them. And then it's just walking down the path of life, understanding that it's all a process, yes, and it's all about the journey. It's not so much about destination. So, there's a lot of cliche in this, but it's a cliche. Stay in the present. Don't get hijacked by in 3 years' time what I want is, or in 5 years' time I aim to be a senior associate at DLA Finance. They're all right to have out, but it shouldn't be totally preoccupied. It should be the mentality of your clients. I've got a lovely guy of my age, retired land surveyor, Jewish. When people in our present start talking about planning, Denny always says, if you want to hear God laugh, plan. I love it. I
Oh,
absolutely love
Yeah.
it. Welcome the surprises. Embrace the surprises. own them. I didn't think that was going to happen. Wow. Where did that bit of gift come from? How did I end up meeting a person like that at a nightclub at 11:30 p.m. in the evening? And this is a person who may have a contribution to make to my current curiosity about my career or something else. Where does this stuff come from? For myself, I would say be diverse. Yeah. Life is more than a single career. Life is about switching on the totality of your unique giftedness. All of it. Don't leave any of it on the shelf. I hear planes in the background. No.
No.
So and that's an awful lot to digest. And I could give you a lot of other stuff about words like generosity. Particularly, if you're in a business circumstance where there are clients involved, be generous to them, not because you want to have a reputation of some sort, but because that people love generosity and they respond to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all know that because we've all experienced it. So that's not hard, is it? When we know how we feel about people who will be genuinely generous. In other words, they're not looking for anything in return. They just do it because they want to do something for us. And that turns on something within us, which is exactly the same as it turns on within all other people in similar circumstances. Sure, there can be some cynics. You can hear people say, why would they have done that? They must think there's something in it for them. We're going to try and rise above that because authentic people don't think that. They understand what unconditional generosity gives them. And you can feel it exactly the same way. So, in that work relationship scenario, generosity has exactly the same impact as in a personal relationship scenario. If you're in a personal relationship with somebody, it might be somebody that you're dating, early stages, you do something for them. You may even do it unknowingly, but just means so much to them in terms of something generous. Might be waiting to take them out and you tidy up the kitchen rather than sitting there watching uh, one of the Adelaide footy teams playing football on their televisions. Yeah, it's just all of that sort of stuff. Well, love. The whole of life skills are exactly the same as the business life skills, professional life skills, personal life skills. Why? Well, you're only one person. There's not three of you. There's not one that puts on a tie and becomes business, another one who sort of puts on a basketball outfit, becomes a basketballer, and then somebody else who's a human being taking somebody out on a date. You just the one person. All those skills are better. We don't put on outfits for days.
Yeah. Oh, that's, I don't know. I think that's a nice kind of sage way to end the entire Africa. Yep, I agree. Yeah, thanks so much for your time today, Gilly. I think, yeah, that was great. A great note to end on. I think I've learnt a lot from this conversation. So, yeah, thanks so much for sharing your time with us today.